Today, in this Technical SEO Masterclass, I'll be interviewing Daniel Foley Carter from SEO Stacker, who's been doing SEO since 1999. He's worked with sites like Lenovo, Virgin, and Sky, and today we'll be discussing the 80/20 of technical SEO, what actually works, how to prepare your site for AI overviews from a technical perspective, plus the HCU updates and what's in store for SEO this year. It's Technical SEO, BS.
Some of it. Some of it. So, do you want me to go into what I think is?
Absolutely. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. All right. So basically, within SEO, the part that isn't BS is the ability for Google to crawl, index, and render pages fully. Other technical aspects that are absolutely crucial is consistent protocols. So consistent internal linking, consistent use of whether you're trailing slash, non-trailing slash, dub, non-dub, and so forth. Canonical configuration, child versus parent canonical configuration, URL architecture, navigation, hreflang. These are all things that generally, are important. From a tech BS perspective, the stuff that I think is just like massively overblown is page speed, right? So literally, I don't even remember the last time I paid any attention to page speed when I'm doing SEO. The main thing that I'm looking at is does the website render properly? And, there's a very big difference between something that loads quickly and something that has good core web vitals. Done countless tests. Most of the sites that I rank, they load quickly, but they don't have good core web vitals. I would rather serve a user a good experience. Other stuff like traditional stuff, titles, description, they're like on the fence. So Google rewrites description if it doesn't think that what you've provided is good enough. Same with titles. Generally, the only time that you pay attention to those is obviously for better CPR. But like lower level stuff, far less important. I'd be focusing far more on the things that Google's moving toward. A lot of the technical SEO still hangs on to the old school SEO of yesteryear, back before Google had, the capabilities that it does now, back when it was a far more basic, text parsing, then it's looking at micro elements, putting keywords in header tags and things like that. So some tech SEO is BS, but there's certainly an important element to it.
So, like, for example, for someone watching this, would you say don't worry about page speed as long as it's a good user experience?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's one of those things when I'm on social media and SEO groups, I see people posting snapshots of like poor core web vitals. And, some of them are like, we're trying to rank, but we can't. Our core web vitals are really bad. We're never going to be able to rank where they're like this. Can someone help? Like, core web vitals is not your problem.
I think a lot of website owners, like, they have this problem with correlation versus causation, right? It's like core web vitals are down, my rankings are down, therefore it must be that, but not necessarily the case, right?
Absolutely. You've got the interplay of hundreds of factors that all converge at different points. So, SEOs love to look for correlation in data. It's one of the things that separates a good SEO from a bad one. But as we all know, most of us are speculating. So we'll look at like clearly what looked like a pattern. But for people that are less knowledgeable, who are trying to understand SEO, they might look for the things that people seem to talk about a lot. And core web vitals is like one of those things because, I do a lot of auditing and I get sent a lot of audit that, they might have had before. And one of those things that is overemphasized all the time is core web vitals. There'll be like 10 pages of an audit that are just, talking about why it's important. And then I always go and say to people, put in the keywords that you want to rank for, take the top few sites. I guarantee more of them do not validate than those that do.
For someone who's, say, like, technically illiterate, right? This is a question that we got from the SEO elite community. It was like, for those technically illiterate, what are the important things from a technical SEO perspective that they should learn first?
If there's someone that is coming into the industry, where should they prioritize their learning?
Yeah, well, they have the website already. It's already ranking and making money. But in terms of technical SEO, they don't have much knowledge.
Well, I think this is the thing, if the website's already ranking and they don't have much technical knowledge, the first thing that obviously they need to get their head around is their technical configuration as it stands. So to put it into perspective, there are numerous scenarios here. So the first one is that you get sites that are technically bad. So if you were to crawl them, you would find loads of problems, but they rank on the merit of they've got a strong brand, they're aged, they've got amazing content, or they've got ridiculous links supporting them. And sometimes none of that matters at all. Sometimes a site that's just technically garbage can rank because it's one of those old boy sites that's just always ranked. For someone that has something that ranks, I guess the area where they need to start and where they need to focus on is the biggest one, and that's what does Google see when it's crawling the site. So, getting that page and getting the source from that page and actually looking at what Google can see is crucial, because, you don't know. I've seen sites where robots text has blocked a subfolder with CSS JS in. So the render that Google gets is like all malformed, because obviously Google can look at a render now, not like years ago. So the highest priority is what can Google see? And it doesn't take a lot to learn how to do that. You can literally go into Google Search Console, put URL in the live URL, and do a live test, look at the screenshot, look at the source output. So highest priority is definitely rendering. The next is, what are you allowing Google to crawl and index? So do you have loads of technical, do you have loads of, I know people say, about index, but do you have a load of stuff in your index shouldn't be there that might be, taking link equity away from important pages? Again, tools like Screaming Frog make this a lot easier to get the data. And there's loads of, videos and stuff on YouTube. There's courses. Got to be careful which courses you choose. But there are, courses around learning the fundamentals of HTML. So one of the things that I used to teach in my webinars was actually get a fundamental understanding of HTML. You don't need to learn how to program. You need to learn the fundamentals of what certain tags do. And then it makes it a lot easier when you're looking at your site to go, that looked right, that doesn't look right. And then obviously crawling. So, again, you've got like Jet Octopus, you've got Deep Crawl, you've got, loads of crawling tools, Screaming Frog. So I'd always say, like, someone with a website that's ranking that wants to maybe start learning about the tech aspects should learn about crawling, and then understand what I call protocol consistency. So that's like making sure that you don't have internal redirect, making sure that your internal links are consistent. The amount of times people just put 301s on all old URLs and they don't realize over time they stack up. So you want clean internal profile. And those are like really the main thing. Auxiliary stuff, there are other auxiliary things that aren't necessarily to do the website. So your domain, making sure that, your DNS is all configured properly, making sure that you haven't got staging sites indexed, making sure that you've got a half decent server. I mean, I could sit here all the day and go through those.
I was just about to ask, like, what would you recommend for the server or for hosting?
Cloudways.
Technical. Sorry?
Cloudways.
Cloudways, yeah.
Yeah. So, because I've done, for so many businesses over the years, and I've ran a lot of my own projects, and I've self-hosted on countless hosting companies over the years. So I've been through like hundreds of hosting companies. And the one that literally has just left all of them behind is Cloudways. Like the ease of server deployment, the ease of binding domains, free SS, the SSL, daily backups, one-click restoration, built-in CDN, built-in firewalls, full server level control. You can duplicate your server in 30 seconds, like the whole interface and how they built it. Leave everything else behind.
That's cool. So that's basically the 80-20 of it, right? Like rendering, indexing, crawling, clean internal profile, and figuring out your hosting as well. That's the 80-20, I would say. Why do you think no one talks about technical SEO on YouTube, right? Because, for example, putting it in perspective, I see a lot of people talking about link building, AI content, it's popping off. I think technical SEO is not that sexy a topic. but it's actually very important.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that, it's not the most fun part of SEO. I think if you're going to be out on social media channels, you're always going to look for the topic that strikes up the most conversation. So, if you're talking about, YouTube video of, how to understand what SSR is, server-side rendering, like going to be one of those things that not many people are interested in. So you're creating content with potentially a small market. But I think there's that. And I think the other thing as well, and this has always been a bugbear for me, but the SEO as a skill is non-curriculum based. So you don't go to university or college. There are no standardized curriculums for learning SEO. Learning SEO is really about, your ability to do multiple things. And I think the problem with technical SEO is that over the years, the legacy stuff has just been carried forward. I'm getting people, overemphasizing about title tag being too long or a meta description being too short, and it's like, yeah, they were problems back in the day, but, it's like now Google will just take a content snippet from a page or it will truncate, these aren't really the problems anymore. So technical SEO doesn't get the love that it deserves. And for the people that are coming into the industry and learning it, they tend to pick up a lot of outdated information because there isn't actively lots of sources out there that put out new information about tech. 10 years ago, you didn't have same tech stacks that you have now. You didn't have websites that are basically JavaScript apps running online. So tech SEO has evolved. The information to support it has not. And there's a whole flurry of new people coming into the industry. And what they see is page speed insights, links, content. They are the things that they're hit by, but they're not looking at CSR, SSR. They're not looking at protocol consistency. They're not looking at server logs to understand what Googlebot is trying to get. They don't know that, if Googlebot gets a 5xx error on a robot tech, it will de-index your site. These are things that are really important, but they're not covered.
Yeah, I see it. I can imagine that with the outdated information. I mean, I even see that with links and content and that sort of thing. The other thing that I see is like, for example, with links or content, is very much like inputs and outputs, right? Like you create this post, you see if it ranks. You create this link, you see if the page ranks. It's quite easy to track. With technical SEO, it's more like, I feel like you're not going to see the direct impact of that.
Yeah.
And usually, from what I've seen, it's a lot of like core updates that hit these sort of sites as well.
Yeah.
Would you say that's true, or?
I think it's really a mix of things because it's such a spider web thing. I think the time for SEOs to start thinking back to front has now started to land. So what I mean by that is, like if we start looking at what Google's doing and the direction that Google's going in, we've always been a community where we would create something, Google would come along and index it, and then we would work to get that content ranked. But we're moving to an era where Google's like moving towards circumventing that. So, we've got SGE, for example, which is like, scraping other people's content and serving it to users, increasing zero-click searches. And well, I mean, the cherry on the cake there is now they're putting ads below scrape content. And it's like, okay, now you're going too far. But if we think about where Google's going, that can shape what we're doing as SEOs. So one of the things, and this is one thing that I think is like massively overlooked, a lot of people might have noticed this over the last 2 or 3 years, but Google is indexing far less content. Like, for years and years and years, you could create a 100-page site and Google would just index all 100 pages, even if it was like an empty about us page or a tag page. Okay. But we're now in an era where, and this is my theory on this, Google is looking to reduce its carbon footprint. Now, Google has God knows how many data centers, zettabytes of storage of billions of URLs. And then you got to ask yourself, why store all the information that you're never going to serve? So if you go to Google and search for something, you might go through the first 10, maybe go on to page 2, but you're never going to go beyond that. So what is the point in Google storing billions of documents it will never serve? So this is a really important from an SEO perspective on why AI content has obviously suffered to a degree. But Google's trying to index less and less and less. And the way that it will do it is that on first pass crawl, it will look at, is it probable that we're going to serve this page? Okay. There's no perceived value in the page. It will crawl it and then just won't index it. Okay. And this is why over the last 2-3 years, we've seen so many people complaining about index problems, struggling to get content indexed. Then on top of all this, you've got that AI revolution. Obviously, as soon as ChatGPT dropped, and then everyone was like, yeah, let's just use ChatGPT to put out articles. You then have this compounding problem where at the same time Google's trying to index less and less, you've got people putting out more and more. And I think this whole system is timed really well with like helpful content update, pattern of behavior. I think these are like the key things that we need to focus on moving forwards. And I think AI content has its place, but I think Google is really working to like now use HCU as like a cleanup exercise.
Makes sense. I mean, we'll come on to that in a sec, which is quite interesting. How would you prepare a site for AI overviews? Like, is there any tweaks you need to make so that you've got a better chance of ranking within SGE, or is it just the same fundamentals apply and you just keep going with that?
So I haven't done enough testing to say that I have a valid opinion on that from what I have seen, because obviously we're in the UK, we don't have SGE yet. Actually, very likely, without diverging from what you asked, very likely that the US market's fine, but Google's scared of Europe because the EU will just sue them for using SGE and scraping content, right? So I think we might actually be protected. But I think in terms of Google's sourcing of information, I think what they'll be looking at is, do you know the principle in that antitrust trial? They were talking about, they don't necessarily understand content, but they look at signals. They have like click indicators. I think what SGE will do, depending on the query, it will, from its knowledge of what information exists, it will look at a source, how comprehensive that source is, and then it will look to see if there are signals to that source. And I think what it will do is there will be a series of indicators, series of almost like classifiers as to, can we use this piece of information for that query? And then they'll obviously use their own AI model to rewrite that content. In terms of sources, I think it will go back to things like citation, depth of content, content architecture. I think those are going to be the main things that it looked at. Mark Williams Cook did a live stream the other day, and he basically triggered SGE and it wrote something about him, and it was like not completely correct. When they found the source of the content, it was like backlinkbuilder.io or some site like that. And it was like a long article about him, but it's this massive article with a table of contents. And it was like all about Mark, his history, what he'd done. There's almost like a Wikipedia style article, structured, clearly defined. But I think if that site has enough credibility and it's got such a depth of information in one place, that would be enough for SGE to scrape that and take elements of it as part of being served. I think that would be one key area.
That's really interesting. So like, for example, for someone watching this, like if they were looking at strategies to optimize for AI overviews, particularly for their brand or their personal brand, targeting like authority sites and getting solid information about them there might be the best place to go.
Yeah, I think so. But I do think that this whole thing is a massive risk. The black hat community has always found a way to take advantage of something that Google's done. This is one of those. So, you could have like a half decent site, with a good reputation behind it, and you could write a 5,000 word article that's defamatory about someone. Like you could put all their background, you could put all this information in there. And then what you could do is drop nuggets of factually incorrect information in there. But that doesn't matter to SGE. It's just going to look at the article, respin it, put it out. And I think this is where, you know, there's serious risk. Like, I think Google is heading towards a myriad of lawsuits, because how is Google going to allow SGE to take a piece of content, respin it, and know that what is actually respinning is fully factually correct? And what's even more offensive is that Google had quality rated guidelines, EAT, right? So it's jamming this down our throats. You know, you need to create content people trust, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like SGE is just putting out content that is factually incorrect. So I think that this opens up the floodgate. Like, someone could write an article about me, put loads of rubbish in it, and then someone could search me in the US and get, you know, AI generated result that is just factually wrong. You know, and what's to stop black hat SEOs taking advantage of that?
It's a really good point, actually. I never really thought about that. I thought about it from the other perspective. Like, for example, you've probably seen some of the funny stuff that SGE comes up with, like fruits that rhyme with like coconutum.
Cream of that was Lily Ray that shared that. But yeah, I literally, I've been in the community seeing hundreds of these examples, and it is laughable how Google's share price hasn't suffered, because, you know, that's damaging. Like, here's a tech that we've launched and it's putting out grossly incorrect information. There's a few people in the industry like Lily Ray, Christine Shajin, I can't pronounce their name, Shajinja, I can't pronounce it. She'll be really but she's like an advocate against SGE, because it's like, well, it's content theft. And on top of content theft, you know, it's dangerous. You know, someone puts in how to get rid of kidney stones and they get told to drink their own urine, or if they put in a medical question, and we were expecting anything medical in SGE to like be a no, like they won't use AI overview to anything health related, because you expose people to risk. Same with YMYL industry, but no, sure enough, we're seeing it.
So you're telling me you shouldn't drink your own urine?
Well, I wouldn't recommend it. Not that I've tried.
Okay, all right.
If I had kidney stones, I'd probably go for more traditional methods of getting rid of them. Like, I'd ask Craig Campbell.
Oh, it's funny. All right. So, just to get, I mean, out of interest, right? Obviously, SG might not come to the UK, and like you said, maybe not even Europe. Do you think like that's quite a good market to target right now? Because a lot of people are fearful about AI overviews, about it being very difficult to rank, about CTRs getting wiped out for the people who don't rank number 1 or don't rank number 3. Do you think like the UK could be quite a good market to target locally because of that situation?
It's a bit hit and miss. The UK market and the US market's just so very different in every way.
Yeah.
You know, I think obviously the US is the playground for Google. We know that different countries have their own policies with Google. So we know, for example, France has a history of suing Google, and the EU in general just files lawsuits against Google all the time, and quite rightly so. I'm supportive of countries protecting people in it and their content and what they do. So I think Google's going to have a real barrier to entry in these markets. If it rolls it out unregulated, then they'll get sued. There'll be lawsuits. And I think it will happen in the US as well. But I think these market, like the UK market, is, you know, a tiny market for Google. And the other thing as well is that even though SGE is disruptive in terms of taking up anywhere from 700 to 900 pixels of real estate above the fold, I also think that you don't change people's behavior overnight. And I think that SEOs panic about it because we think of it as if we were using Google. You're going to get a lot of traditional users that just like, oh, what's this? And they'll just scroll straight up and they'll always do what they always have done. You know, we had the same or similar panic, maybe not to the same degree, but we did have a lot of panic in the past when Google announced that it was going to launch rich snippet. It was like, okay, we went from 3 ads above the fold to 4 ads, and then we've got a featured snippet. Okay, so organic has consistently been displaced. And that's always a panic, because it's like, the more you displace organic, the lower the click-through rate is for the first, second, third result. But user behavior mean people will just continue to scroll, and they will go to their organic trusty listing. And we know that this is very likely the case, because for the first time, I started seeing in Google Ads, in Google search, right, a Google Ads placed between organic listing. I thought it was a joke. I'd never seen it before. Yeah, but now they're dropping it. So they had one organic result, then they had people also asked, then they had a ads, and then the next organic result. I'm thinking, like, and this is dangerous for Google. This is really dangerous, because if you continue to piss people off, and they are really pissing a lot of people off, content creators all over the world, you continue to abuse the very market that made you what you are, you will lose market share, because Bing are innovating, and that's why Google panicked with SGE. DuckDuckGo emphasized on privacy, but the reason that Bing and DuckDuckGo don't have large market shares is because of user behavior.
Yes, habits. Yeah.
It's a habit, yeah. So that habit is also applied to, if I search for Google, I've always get past paid, and a lot of people do. So, you know, I think it's definitely going to be a very interesting time over the next few years.
100%, 100%. Who would you say is like the gold standard in technical SEO? If you had to point out a few sites that you think they've really nailed the technical SEO side of things.
Oh, that's really hard to say. I haven't analyzed any sites that I would consider technically perfect. In all honesty, if I go on a site, I will find a problem. It's like, for example, you know, I used to do a lot of analysis on healthline.com, just because I was fascinated by, you know, their growth, just how quickly they scaled. You know, but they had issues. They had, like, you know, random indexing anomalies. They had in-page issues, you know, because I would crawl and analyze, like, there aren't any sites I can safely say that I've crawled that I would say are perfect from a standpoint. Every one has something.
Yeah, of course. There's no such thing. It's kind of like link building, right? There's no such thing as a perfect link profile.
Yeah.
You kind of just, sometimes you have to compromise a little bit as well. Who would you say is like, you know, nailing it right now in terms of local SEO? Are there any, technical SEO? Are there any sort of sites that you recommend taking a look at?
So there's a few. So, again, it's really hard because, like, pronouncing the names. So there's a guy, the JC Chunard, I can't pronounce his name. He was, I think he was like ex-TripAdvisor or something. You know, to be honest, there's like loads of really good SEO resource out there from a tech point of view. You've got Mark Williams Cook, who does a lot with tech SEO. He puts a lot of stuff in his core newsletter. Shy Arony of Reboot, he does like stuff with technical SEO, SEO testing. He did like one of the most amazing experiments years ago with, he did this massive study between people that had shared hosting and dedicated hosting. And like, he demonstrated how shared hosting was actually worse for SEO than dedicated hosting. Like, off the top of my head, you know, there are good people out there. It'd be hard for me to name. But I would always say, like, you know, you've got Alida Solis, who has learning SEO.io. That, you know, there's tons of amazing stuff on there. And what's really good with that site is like contributions from loads of people in the SEO industry. I'd say like other SEOs who don't really post so much on the technical side, or they might post like a mix of tech. You know, you get people like Lily Ray, who will do like experiments, and she'll do like a lot of market visibility analysis. I'd love to name more people, but off the top of my head, I've got brain freeze.
That is so good. I mean, you mentioned quite a few there, so I appreciate that. One of the people I see struggle the most with technical SEO, particularly Canonicals, is e-commerce, because they have like multiple variations of the pages. Like, I think one of the technical errors they like struggle with quite a lot is like alternate page with proper canonical tag. Like, how do you go about fixing that sort of stuff?
Okay, so I do tons with GSC page indexing and not index stuff, and I'm living in this stuff all the time. So the first thing that I always say is that canonical configurations are always uh, the result of the CMS that you use. Okay, so if you have a CMS like WordPress with WooCommerce, for example, you have far more control because you have the source of the data. Whereas with Shopify, for example, you have control over the liquid files, but the configuration out of the box from a canonical standpoint is like a fire dumpster, a dumpster fire, sorry.
Really? So is
Yeah,
that bad?
yeah.
Like you Shopify straight out.
It's awful. Absolutely. It's like the most ridiculous thing on the planet. I do not understand why they haven't changed it. But so, for example, if you have an e-commerce site, there are some very basic top level things that you have to make sure of. So the first thing is, if you have alternate page with proper canonical, what that basically means is you have a child page of a parent page. Okay. And the whole point of a canonical, so if I just like rewind it a little bit, canonical tags were introduced in the mid 2000s. They were introduced because back then, content management systems and website platforms were really rigid, and they would often create like multiple versions of a page, and the tech limitations at the time meant that they couldn't do anything about it. And Google didn't have a way for people to say to Google, look, just ignore these pages because they're the same as this page. So what you had in the past was Google indexing everything, and it would just index loads of copies of the same page. And, the old duplicate content issues and all these things. So Google finally took action and said, look, we'll introduce the tag called canonical tag, and you can use that to tell us if something is similar to one another. Great, problem solved. But that was a long time ago. So now, if you have, let's say, 100-page site, and you've got loads of pages that are canonical child pages, what you're doing is you're saying to Google, all these pages here are basically almost the same as this parent page. But the problem is, and this is why there are so many problems, is that Googlebot still make mistakes. And what happens is that if you've got a canonical parent and a canonical child, quite often the canonical parent is the page that's like in the navigation or it's most linked to, and then the canonical child tend not to be. But if Googlebot gets confused and says, actually, we're going to choose the canonical child over the parent, it will create this situation of cannibalization where it drops the power page for the weaker page, and it does happen. Because the weaker page has less internal links, it tends not to be unique, it performs less than the parent would. And that's where the problem is. So the canonical configuration on any e-com site should minimize, if not eliminate, canonical child situation. You don't want pages. If you're telling Google that these 10 pages are similar to this one, why are those 10 pages there? They're almost identical. So if I could say to anyone in ecom, the most important thing is making sure that you are not giving Google the opportunity to make a mistake. Okay. If I was to give you one example where this happens a lot, product variations. Okay. So you can have a car, say a Ford Fiesta. Okay. You can have a red Ford Fiesta, a blue Ford Fiesta, a green Ford Fiesta. A Ford Fiesta page, and then you've got the child variant. Okay. The only difference is the color. Okay. And that is not enough unique information for Google to treat those pages as unique, even though the product is unique, because a green car, a red car, someone might want a green Ford Fiesta, not a red one. But where the problem happens is that if there's just not enough unique information in an ecom variant, it either won't get indexed, or if you've got 5,000 Ford Fiestas and you've got 5,000 variants of the same color, mixed colors, that's when the problems start. And for e-com site owners, this is the most important one that they need to address.
Nice. Really good answer. Thank you. So really appreciate your time today. Is there anything else you would say before going, or anything else we didn't mention today that you think people should know?
Well, I guess the hot potato at the minute is helpful content update, which is, so I do a lot of auditing, and in all honesty, like, I've always tried to maintain a professional view toward things. But recently I found myself incredibly growing more and more angry with Google, to the point where my interactions with them on Twitter generally are like, fuck you, basically. Because I've had people come to me that have had their businesses decimated, not damaged, decimated. And when I go and look at their content, what they've been doing, and they're producing amazing, really high quality content, you can see that they really have paid attention to, EAT, they've gone above and beyond to try and add unique value to their content. And then they've been wiped out. Like they never existed. September hit them and just downward trail. And then March was like another kick in the teeth. And I think this is like a really hot topic. And I almost feel like Google dropped SGE shortly, all the fanfare about SGE shortly after HCU March. And I think that they did that on purpose to create a new topic for people to talk about and debate over, to try and bury the hatchet. Google knows that they screwed up with HCU. John Mueller probably has had God knows how much sent to him, like what's going on, people begging for help. Sites like Retro Dodo, House Fresh, all
House Fresh, yeah.
creating content. And I think like, if you look at it, it's all salt in the wounds, devaluing good content, which is content that people genuinely created for the end user, following all of the guidelines, and then not only devaluing their content, but then using it to scrape and steal from for SGE after the creators of that content have lost all their income or most of their income. Okay. And then they're seeing snippets of their content appearing in SGE. Like that is too far. I've been doing some SEO tests. And I plan over the next couple of weeks to start releasing the results of these tests. HCU claims, there's people in the SEO industry that claims that they've found and they're recovered from HCU. And I actually think the reality is very different. What I'm testing at the minute, a few different things. From all the analysis that I've done, if I could give anyone any crumbs of insight, what appears to be one of the leading factors, okay, and these are the things that I'm seeing, is brand and brand search volume. Brand search volume and overarching brand citation and brand authority comes first. So what I think with HCU and their initial classifier was, can we trust the domain that this content is hosted on? And it's like, yes or no? No, right, okay, well, then you see that massive tail off straight away. I think user behavior plays a part in it as well. My theory on user behavior and HCU, primarily driven by one key factor. Reddit, obviously, as we know, dominate the SERPs. Parasite SEO was dominating the SERPs. Okay, so why is Reddit, UGC, and Parasite SEO, why are these things dominating the SERP? Like, we've had years of Google dropping EAT, core update, and all this stuff. So, after the antitrust trial, when Google said, actually, we can't read content and understand it. We can't say whether content's good. We use clicks, blah, 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 right? So, what happens if I want to buy a mobile phone and I put in best mobile phone 2024, whatever? If you go to affiliate sites that have like a long list of all the phones, great. People engage more with negative content. And when you go into like forums like Reddit, you spend more time engaging with the content because it's unbiased. You've got like people saying, don't buy this phone, it's crap. Here's all the faults that I had with it. And people engage for longer and longer and longer. Okay. So if Google can't understand content, But the user behavior part of HCU is what Google can look at. And obviously we know that these overarching sites like Reddit, Parasite SEO on LinkedIn, these sites have massive overarching authority. So you've got overarching authority, brand, and engagement all packaged together, which is why I think a lot of the affiliate sites got wiped out. They didn't have the brand clout. They probably didn't have the same level of engagement as UGC. And when you put a classify system in that is like on or off, that's why then all this apparently amazing content is just nothing. And those are the key things that I'm seeing. So obviously when I have like enough test data that I can come back to the community and say, here's what I found, here's my result, then I'll do that. But anyway, I hope that provided some insight.
That's awesome, man. No, there was a really unique insight into it, and it's one that I don't hear very often, mate. Honestly, you have to start creating your own YouTube videos or something, because I want to hear more content from you.
Thank you. No, I really appreciate that. I've watched your stuff as well. I enjoy it.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Awesome. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
LinkedIn or SEO-audit.io. I do like a series of webinars. There's like 40 hours of SEO videos on there for, I think at the minute, it's like £40. It's like 40 hours of, I basically do like loads of hands-on SEO demonstrations, and I talk about theory and methodology, and then I do like hands-on SEO demonstration. SEO-audit.io is like my main point, all through LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. It's like my world.
That's awesome. All right. We'll drop the links in the description so people can click on them and get in touch if they need to. But yeah, really appreciate you being on.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for having me.
Cheers. So thanks so much for watching. If you want to get a free SEO strategy session, feel free to book that in. Links inside the comments description. We'll basically build you a custom tailored SEO game plan live on the call. We'll answer any questions you have one-to-one, and you'll discover the secrets of link building plus how to outrank your competitors. Feel free to book that in. Bye-bye.